Hello everyone, Mr. Science Mover here. To beat Minecraft, there are a few things you'll need. First, you need to collect Eyes of Ender, which can be obtained by combining Blaze Powder with an Ender Pearl. Then, you'll need to locate the end portal and use those eyes to open the portal and kill the Ender Dragon. Usually, accomplishing all this requires you to explore far beyond anywhere you would have explored naturally in your playthrough. But, what if I told you I was able to do all of this without leaving spawn? A few days ago, I stumbled upon a video by YouTuber The Mr. Epic, where he explained the process that seed hunters had gone through to find a specific seed in which the game could be beaten without leaving the chunk you spawn in. A chunk in Minecraft is a 16 by 16 block chunk of the world that extends from y equals 0, or now negative 64, all the way up. Minecraft uses this method of chunking the world in order to conserve resources. By chunking the world the way it does, Minecraft is able to only render the blocks relevant to the player at any given time. But how exactly can we beat Minecraft without leaving our little 16 by 16 spawn area? Well, for better context on how this seed was found, you can go watch the Mr. Epic's original video linked in the description. In terms of the general route, this specific seed has both a village and an end portal located in the spawn chunk. On recent versions of Minecraft, this is not possible, and if you've ever seen a 1.16.1 speedrun, you know that the closest stronghold to 00 is still about 1400 blocks away. But on earlier versions of Minecraft, this restriction doesn't exist. For today's playthrough, we'll be running on Minecraft version 1.7.10. Another version difference crucial to this run is that prior to version 1.8, villager clerics can sell Eyes of Ender, which means we don't even need to kill any blazes. We just need to collect some emeralds and trade for our Eyes of Ender. In his original run, the Mr. Epic spent a lot of time waiting around for his sheep to eat grass so that he could gain enough emeralds to trade for Eyes of Ender. For my run though, I decided that the only restriction on my playthrough would be to not leave the spawn chunk. Therefore, the rules for my run were as such. If we press F3, we can see our coordinates as well as the chunk we're in. If I were to ever go outside chunk negative 4833, then my run would be invalid. Fortunately, that means two things for me. One, I was able to interact with items outside of my spawn chunk as long as I didn't leave myself. This mainly involved luring animals and shooting enemies. Two, I allowed myself to duplicate items. In older versions of Minecraft, and specifically the version I'd be playing on, there are multiple ways of duplicating items. The first method I tried was the classic of dropping your items on the ground and hitting Alt F4, but I was unable to get that method to work for me. I assume it's because of the new Minecraft launcher saving the world on quit. In any case, I was able to find a way to dupe items without leaving the spawn chunk, and it involved going into the nether. In 1.7.10, if you send a minecart with an item in it through a nether portal, but pull out that item right as the cart is teleporting, the item will stay in your inventory as well as in the minecart, meaning you now have double what you had before. This only works for one item stack at a time, but that was all I needed. My main route for this run would be as such. Goal number 1 would be to create the setup for our duplication machine. We would need to be able to create it using only what was originally available to us. Fortunately, the end portal room itself contains 13 blocks of lava, which was more than enough for us to create a nether portal. In addition, I would need some iron for a minecart and tracks for it. Assuming this was possible, goal number 2 would be to capture some villagers. It's important that I had 2 so that I could make more in the hopes of finding a cleric that sold Eyes of Ender. All of the rules being set, I was ready to start attempts. First off, we would need to actually spawn in our desired chunk. Minecraft has a range of a few chunks that it could potentially spawn you in, so I needed to get lucky and spawn in the correct chunk with the end portal in it. After that, my first order of business was to capture some villagers before they died to zombies on night 1. I learned that the hard way when, during my first attempt, all of my villagers died and I had no one left to trade with. My second real attempt was when I really got going. I captured some villagers right away and, despite having not the best trades, I could still use them to make me a cleric. Hopefully they get busy sooner or later. Once I had those guys set up, I dug straight down to the end portal room to set up my duplication machine. I found enough iron while mining to craft a bucket, some rails, and a minecart, so we were good to go. The nether chunk I spawned in was negative 7.4, so I allowed myself to move around entirely in that chunk as well. I went through the process of duplicating some iron and crafted myself iron armor and tools. By now I was really getting into the swing of things. Unfortunately, things would soon go a bit haywire. I had originally blocked off the edges of my chunk with cobblestone so that I wouldn't accidentally walk outside. The problem was that ghasts could still see me and fire at me. This wasn't a big deal as I could easily avoid the shots, but what I didn't realize was that a stray fire charge could knock me out of my boxed-in area, which is exactly what happened. I was all but ready to restart my run at this point, but fortunately I had my F3 window open at the time, so I went back and analyzed precisely whether I had broken the rules of the run, and wouldn't you know it, I actually hadn't gone outside. Rubbing up against my cobblestone wall only gave me an x-coordinate of negative 111.7, which meant I still had 0.3 blocks to work with. When the gas knocked me on top of the wall, I managed to stay under negative 112 at precisely a max of negative 111.93, far enough back that I was able to walk on the wall, but still within my rules of the run. That scare was enough for me to build a roof over my head though. After trading some duped wheat for my first few emeralds, I duped those as well. I now had enough money to buy anything I needed, so the only thing left was to breed a cleric. In the meantime, I searched the seed on a creative world and found some diamonds hiding away right outside of my chunk, so I mined them and replaced the stone to bring them towards me. I duped those right away, so I upgraded all my armor and tools. Somewhere along the line, I also killed a cow, so I cooked some beef and duped that for food for the rest of the run. When I finally got my cleric, I snagged some Eyes of Ender, which was apparently only a 16% chance, so I got pretty lucky, and with some preparation, headed into the end. At this point I had completed the challenge to where the Mr. Epic had, but I wanted to really test whether at this point you could defeat the dragon in a single end chunk. I tried for a bit, but unfortunately it didn't seem possible. I destroyed all the crystals I could with some arrows I had duped from a skeleton, but there were some out of my reach, and whenever I managed to hurt the dragon, she would retreat back to her crystals to heal up. I ended up having to manually destroy those crystals as well, leaving my spawn chunk for the first time. After destroying the crystals, I was able to swing away at the dragon with my diamond sword and complete the run. I'd also like to highlight a comment I found in the original Mr. Epic video posted by user Maxwell Barker. It's technically true that the Ender Dragon in version 1.7.10 spawns the end portal below wherever you kill her, so if you could manage to kill the dragon above you, you could finish the game without leaving your end chunk. Maxwell Barker says in order to break the final crystals I couldn't reach with a bow and arrow, you could try building a TNT cannon. This would require a few things: gunpowder, sand, and redstone. Redstone we can already obtain by trading with villagers, and gunpowder we can obtain from creepers. The difficult part here is obtaining the sand, since no sand spawns in our spawn chunk, and we can't trade with villagers to obtain it. However, if we were to update our Minecraft version to 1.10 after we had already traded for our Eyes of Ender, we could potentially encounter a wandering trader, who has a small chance to offer some sand in exchange for emeralds. Once we have that sand, we can dupe as much TNT as we want. Mining our nether portal corners with our diamond tools would give us some obsidian to dupe as well, for constructing the machine itself. And of course, we have as many buckets of water as we want from our duped iron. So, with all of the tools necessary for a TNT cannon, we could in theory destroy all of the crystals, meaning we just have to hit the dragon as she flies by enough times to finish the game. So to answer the question, is it possible to beat Minecraft without leaving your spawn chunk? Well, technically yes, but it would be extremely difficult. If any of you would like to attempt this challenge, I'll leave the seed in the description below. It was pretty fun to try, and I would recommend it to people who are looking for new ways to play the game. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe for when we make more content in the future. Until then, I'll see you next time.